Here's what can be helpful. And also, none of it matters if you're not happy. That's another thing where putting myself out there, kind of intentionally trying to increase the chances of good things happening to me. I'm excited about what we can do now. Like, what are the features and what are the experiences we can create now with the help of AI? So, like, I can have these theoretical ideas, but when I get practical, hands on, I get even deeper insights. If I'm not trying to convert, then what am I doing? Like, they're not paying me to like be charming, just for the sake of my own brand.
Hello, Internet. Welcome back to the Code and Content Podcast, the podcast for conversations at the intersection of code and content. Today's guest is Mark Techson. He is a motivational speaker. He's a game show host. He works with the Angular team at Google, and he is a force of positivity. I was really excited to get Mark on the podcast because his positivity shines through in everything that he does. And I think we found a lot of similarities in this line of work where wearing your heart on your sleeve is kind of part of the job description. We sort of spoke about where that comes from, the power of great content, how that's got us where we are. We went wildly off course halfway through this conversation, but I think managed to pull it back in and stick the landing. Had a lot of fun recording this conversation. Also, too, while I've got you, make sure you check out sanity.io. We released so much new stuff recently. You have to dive in and check it all out. If you've used Sanity in the past, a lot has changed for the better. It's all easier. Go and check that out while you are listening to this episode of the Code and Content Podcast. Mark, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
I mean, you're still cleaning your glasses. Should I have waited until you were finished before I hit the intro, or you're just ready to go now?
Either way is fine. I like the reality of the fact that I was cleaning my glasses, so people know that this is really two people just chatting, right? So it's totally fine.
This is not all that staged, certainly not rehearsed. So, but we were getting some great back and forth going there about the content creation experience and maybe some tips that we should have actually worked in. But I'm going to get one of those teleprompters because the way that you get to look down the camera is really interesting. Mark, I wanted to get you on the show because I've seen your content online, and largely what I really love about it is the positivity that shines through a lot of what you do, through conference talks and the videos that you distribute and everything. I'm a big fan of that because I love fitness influencers who are also very positive in the way that they communicate their work. I'm wondering, where does that positivity come from for you? What's the inspiration behind that tone that shines through your content?
Sure. So for me, positivity is in short supply these days, to be honest with you. And I don't believe in like toxic positivity, like being positive at all costs. You know what I mean? Like, I don't
Mm,
care if the world's on fire, I'm gonna be positive. But what I mean is that there's just, in my opinion, there just aren't a lot of voices that are reasonable with positivity. So there are people who be like, you have the same 24 hours that I have. Why aren't you making the best out of your life? And I'm like, okay, so that's true. We all have the same 24 hours, but our capacities for like stress and everything is different. So I like to bring what I like to call like a more reasonable or thoughtful approach to positivity, because I'm never going to tell you what you should be doing, based on like your capacity. But I will tell you, like, here's what works for me, right? And here's what I think could be beneficial to you if you fit certain categories, right? Meaning, like, if you have this in common personality wise, this might be a really good look for you. But if it doesn't, that's okay as well, right? You might not be the type of person who wants to like I'm a ladder climber by like nature. Like, my therapist is always telling me, like, dude, you should be happy where you are. And I'm like, I am happy, but I can also see the next like rung on the ladder. And I'm always trying to go up. Some people don't want that, so I really want to, just be thoughtful and say things like, here's what can be helpful. And also, none of it matters if you're not happy, right? Like,
mm.
so you can do all this stuff, but like self-care and happiness is still important. So that's a really long answer to a very,
No, that's
short
fine. I
question.
always sort of like to start with that. I feel like everybody's got a philosophy on the thing that they do, so I kind of like to open the door early on to like tell me why you do all of these things that you do in a really unstructured way, because I think that speaks to who we are. And I do like that advice of give advice rather than direction. I try to keep that in check with a lot of what I do as well. Is that here's what works for me, not this is what you should do, and that's really important. The other thing I'm very keen to talk to you about is, have you ever read that blog post about luck surface area, or have heard that expression
No,
before?
that's so fascinating. Tell me more.
Oh, it's the first time I saw it was linked by Adam Wathan many years ago. I'll have to send you the link afterwards. I meant to send it in advance just in case you had seen it, but it just speaks about you increase the likelihood of how lucky you're going to be in life by continually putting yourself out there and putting yourself into situations. And I feel like that you are the embodiment of the luck surface area. You had a tweet there a while ago about wanting to host a game show. Now you host a game show.
That's right.
Is that a concept that resonates with you? The sort of putting that out there, what you would like to achieve, what you'd like to do, and then seeing those things materialize, I suppose.
Oh, that's 100% right. That's
Mm.
100% right. And I do believe in like putting yourself out there to, like you said, to increase the chances that the things that you want actually come to fruition. And I can tell you at least three like different ways that that's happened. So one is definitely the game show, right? Like I put that out there that like I want to be on TV or and on media, hosting a game show because I really like the idea of just interacting with people and telling jokes and having a good time. I don't get to be as funny on social media because when you're really positive, it's like that's what people kind of expect from you. So people don't know that I'm like humorous and have a have a pretty good sense of humor. At least I think so. And so that's one area. Working at Google for my career, that's another thing where putting myself out there, kind of intentionally trying to increase the chances of good things happening to me. So before I joined Google, I was working on a startup that I had built. And intentionally decided to put my app on Google's tech stack. This is before I joined because I felt like, I was like, okay, so if they ever saw it, they probably have a higher chance of being like, oh, we'll put this person in one of those like feature showcases at Google I/O or at one of our events. Like, look at this developer using Flutter to build the next, $1 billion startup. Like I thought that was a good look for Google. So I just really put my work out there. That did not turn into me making $1 billion or even $1. I never made a single dollar in my startup. But what it did do was I made amazing connections that when some opportunities opened up at Google, people put them in front of me like, "Hey, do you want to come and interview here?" Right? Like that's how that came about. But I also did get some of that, opportunity to be featured. So when the Flutter community, so for friends who may not know, Flutter is a mobile app development software. So you can do cross-platform apps. So I was building a fitness app, and I was like, okay, I definitely want to get promotion by any means necessary to help grow this product. I was actually in a bunch of videos by the Flutter team. And so my plan, quote unquote, kind of worked to increase my chances of getting visibility that way. But that wasn't the end all, right? The ultimate goal was that like when role opened up on the Flutter team, I was able to apply for it. Right. And so that really created some interesting opportunities for me. And yeah, so it's just incredible things happen when you put yourself out there. You definitely increase your chances of good things happening to you.
Yeah, and that's the power of creating that content and putting it out in the open and putting it in front of the right people who can make those decisions, isn't it? I feel like we have basically the exact same origin story of how I ended up at Sanity as well. Was creating things that were exciting to me, but making sure I was constantly putting it in front of people at Sanity and putting it in their community. And then it was the exact same thing. By the time there was a role open that I thought that I would be reasonably experienced at, I already had built those connections internally, and that definitely went a long way. So that is the power of putting yourself out there. But then the flip side is when that thing comes to pass. So now that you can put on your resume, a game show host. How's the reality of that one in particular, or any of the other examples of now I've made it? Like you talk about, do I have to get to the next level? Like how's the reality of getting what you want?
Uh, that's so okay. I'll be honest with you. I'm hearing the echoing voice of my therapist in my brain. Like it reminded me because one of the hardest things for me, so one of my like strongest assets, and one of the things that can be limiting for me is my like ambition. And so when you're really ambitious and you really want to do incredible things, you tend to like put a lot of effort in, but then it can lead to like dissatisfaction or where you'll have what you've been working for and then you won't be as happy as you thought you'd be. So for
Mhm.
me, I think being a game show host is a dream come true. Like that in itself, just the opportunity. Shout out to Code TV and Jason Langsdorf for making this happen. But like it feels amazing. It's surreal. When I'm on set, it is surreal that like I'll get on set and then and I'm a kind of emotional person. Like, when things inspire me, my eyes will get a little leaky, you know what I mean? Or if I'm sad,
Mhm.
of course. But I remember sitting in the makeup chair because of course, everyone who goes on camera, they're just like, okay, touch up, you're too shiny, blah blah blah. I'm even shining on camera right now. Oh, but I sit in the makeup chair, my eyes start to water, and lady's like, oh, is it the products? I'm like, no, I just can't believe that I'm sitting in a makeup chair on set. Right? And I can't believe that there's a wardrobe person waiting for me. And I can't believe that somebody just said, "We need Mark on set in 10 minutes." You know what I mean? Like this whole
Mhm.
experience was just very grounding for me. And it is incredible. It is incredible. Now, then there's another part of me that says, okay, how do we make, the game show Elite Heat be the best show in the world, right? Like, how do we get everyone talking about it? How do we just go to the next level with Elite Heat? And so it's a really important struggle that I have for myself for me to always remind myself to be grateful of what's happening. Are you familiar with the play Hamilton?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, there's a song that man, even right now I'm trying to hold it together. There's a lyric that says, look around at how lucky we are to be alive right now."
Mm.
I have to remind myself of that a lot because I'm just like, all the good things in my life feel really great, but I can look in the distance and see more things that I want to accomplish. But I have to stop and be like, man, look around. Like, how incredible is your life right now? So,
Yeah, that's amazing. I feel like this is going to become less of a podcast and just a conversation between you and I because I'm sort of really fascinated by that response because I can relate to it an awful lot. I have been accused of not being willing to accept praise
mm,
regularly because, oh, Simeon did a fantastic job on that thing. And I'm like, yeah, did I really though? And everybody thinks it's fantastic, but I refuse to see the good in it. And that actually makes me very curious because I've thought a lot about this recently is taking that step back to recognize the quality of the work that you have done. So I'm genuinely curious. Is that something you've done work on? I've started to wonder. Do I need to get into journaling? Like, what is the device to then? Because it's very tempting to just go and look after the next thing and chase after the next thing and like I say, be ambitious, moving on the next thing, keep growing, keep going up. But to take that step back and look at what you have done and how it's got you here must be a really important thing to keep yourself level set, I'm guessing.
it is. It's super important. So for me, the way that I like to do it is it's gonna sound so new age, like the new kids. Just I'm grounded with gratitude. But okay, so here's a good example of how I like to practice gratitude. Uh, in my neighborhood, the house that I bought for my family, it's a nice house, right? And it's not like, oh, I live in a mansion. It's not that at all. I don't. I do not. But I live in a house better than I ever thought possible growing up, because I grew up poor. So I was like, anything that I get is better than what I started with. You know what I mean? And then kind of where we landed, and every time we drive into our neighborhood, I tell my wife, I'm just like, look at how fortunate we are. Right. Like I can't believe we get to live here now. And sometimes before I walk into my house, and this is very true, I'll whisper thank you. I would just say thank you. Because I know that there are people who don't have this opportunity. I know there are people who are equally, if not more deserving than I am of this opportunity who don't have it. And so for me, every time I, get kind of weird, I like to be grounded in gratitude around that. And then other thing about accepting praise, man, that's hard because I think we're similar in the way that we were even talking about our setups, right? Like right before anybody watching us right now is looking like, man, these guys look great on camera. Look at all the gear they have. They have pro microphones, cameras look great, lighting looks great. And both of us were talking about what we would do more. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not enough. Yeah, I hate this background. I've been told it looks like I've got cardboard on the walls. I'm not a good interior designer. So yes,
See, I
I
like it though. You see? That's the
yeah,
thing.
there you
I
go.
like it. I think it
There you
looks
go.
great.
Thank you. Well, okay, maybe I'll leave it. But no, it is really important to be in tune with that gratitude. I'm much the same. I think of the life my kids have, and
Mhm.
I didn't have a bad life growing up, but my
Mhm.
kids have done far more than I did at their age, and so I like to regularly remind them of that because like their expectation of like what's normal is so much higher than what my normal was at their age, and I'm like, hey, I didn't have this at your age, and to try and keep them grounded too. But at the same time, I want them to have better too.
Yes.
So it's very difficult. We are so far off the map of talking about content, but I'm enjoying the conversation either
Oh,
away.
Man, that's the wrong thing for me to like to talk about, to stay on one topic because like I just lead with with my heart, man. And sometimes my heart, I'm just like, look, somebody again, see you asked about like where the positivity comes from. These are like
Mm,
all the origin stories, like
mm,
all the things that kind of give me like such a positive outlook is not for sake of just like because of my own strength, I've done all these incredible things. It's just like, there are good things that have happened. Some of these things have required me to behave in a certain way or to think in a certain way or to do certain things. And I like to share, that. And then some of the positivity is just like, man, I want people to like also have a good time. Right. So some of it comes from that. But can we just talk about the kid thing just for a minor little
go for it.
detour? That is one of the hardest struggles that I have is making my kid like understand that like it's like I don't want him to, like, feel bad that, I had a much different life than him, but I'm trying constantly, and I mean trying because I don't get this right all the time, but I'm always trying to help him to be grateful and appreciate things without having to have gone through the forced gratitude. Meaning, like I'm forced into gratitude in some ways because of growing up poor. It's like my circumstances led me to a very narrow possibility set, and then by some luck and some being in the right place at the right time, I got some incredible opportunities where I was able to position us in a very comfortable life. He does not understand that. You know what I mean? But I want him to understand it and have that resilience, but I don't want him to have to struggle to get that resilience. You see what I'm saying? Like I don't want him to feel any
Yeah.
pain to have to get it like I had to, you know? It's just the whole thing. It's the whole thing.
I think it's really impossible though, because without having a lived experience, I don't think you can sort of just know things academically, like just being told.
Yeah.
This is how some people live, unless you live it yourself. So,
Mm.
like we've done a lot of traveling, which has been great, but we've traveled to some places which are much more unfortunate than the situation we're in. So I'm glad to have exposed my kids to those situations, even though they haven't had to live in those situations, and that's
Just so they
about as
can
close as
know.
I can do, I think. Yeah,
Yeah.
just to be aware that there's a big world out there, like,
That's a big
and there's
world.
people
That's
live in
right.
all sorts of manner of different situations, and aren't all as fortunate as we are.
Yeah.
But I think, and I'm going to do my very best to drag this back to
That's
content,
right.
is that the job that you and I have relies
Yeah.
on authenticity, and I think that's because we wear our hearts on our sleeve, whether that's
Mhm.
excitement, positivity, disappointment. Then and that then would relay back to the tech that we're in, right? Like you're
Right.
as excited about Flutter and Google as I'm as excited about Sanity, and then that comes through the camera, and that can't be faked
Right.
very easily. Which then this is the world's longest segue, but I'm going to get there. We now live in a very uncertain time where
Mhm.
I feel like there's less excitement about tech or less excitement about the future of tech because AI. Sorry, we had to get to this conversation point eventually. You gave a great talk at Epic Web Conf. I watched that again the other day
Oh,
about trying to maintain some excitement and still finding a positive outlook. I'm no longer convinced that we're all losing our jobs in 6 months because of AI. But can you sort of distill some thoughts about why there ought to still be some enthusiasm behind what we're doing? Because this positivity enthusiasm is what got us here, and
yeah.
I think there's still things to be enthusiastic about going forward.
So I've been in the industry for next year, 2026. I got my
Mhm.
first tech job in 2006. So I'll have had 20 years in tech as an engineer in tech. Wow, 20 years. I can't even believe it. I still remember being this young guy, like, right out of grad school, getting my first tech job and getting fired from that job. But that's a different that's a whole different story. But I will say this. So the reason I bring up the tenure in tech is that I've seen trends that have had the same destination come up multiple times. So when I first started working, one of the popular trends was offshoring, right? So everybody's sending all jobs to India, right? Like
Mm,
all engineering jobs, they were just like sending everything to India. And the people were like freezing hiring, and they were saying, we don't really need local engineers because we can offshore and have these offshore teams much cheaper, like cost per capita, blah 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 blah. And we're supposed to all lose our jobs. And over the last 20 years, I've had a job consistently for 20 years. What happened, right? So why wasn't and this isn't a commentary on the talent in other places. I'm just saying, what happened? Why didn't we, like end up with everybody else? Sure, because what the people who are planning for us to like not exist are I don't know if they're seeing the full picture. I'll say it that way because I don't, I gotta be mindful what I say. I do work for an AI company, so
of
be
course.
mindful what I say. I'm not sure that, and I don't think people are at my company are saying this, but there are there are leaders in the tech industry though that are saying that we won't have a job in 20 years. So how can I still be positive? That talk that I gave at Epic Web Conf, that was a transformational moment, at least for me. And that's because it was like me distilling so much of my thoughts around AI and the fear and the anxiety, and then finishing it with hope, right, for the industry. And essentially, I think that we have a lot of work to do because I'm excited about what we can do now. Like, what are the features and what are the experiences we can create now with the help of AI? Because for me, I like to think of AI as a robotic exoskeleton that makes me run faster, jump higher, makes me much stronger. Right? That's the way I like to see it. I know that there are some people who are like, well, forget the exoskeleton. Let's actually just build a robot who's better than you. See, I think that that's a limited view. And that's
Mm.
why I'm not like so discouraged. And like you, and I said this on stage, I was like quite afraid at some point. Lots of things, lots of anxiety, right? Lots of just like feeling like, oh man, this is over. Like we're so cooked. And then I'm like, wait a minute. What if we got involved and helped shape the direction of this whole thing? Right? And that for me was like the moment of like clarity. Okay, I'm gonna get involved. So even at my work, I'm like actively involved in any AI related activities that I'm able to, so I can one, know what's happening, and two, hopefully have some influence. And I think that abstaining means that we lose some of that opportunity to steer the ship. And so, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, and I think we're so far beyond the like just being an AI cynic and saying, "Oh no, I won't touch it at all." Like we've got to all get involved at some point. But yeah, I'm much the same. I feel like every time our efficiency has improved, it hasn't meant that we've worked less. It just means that there's more expectations on us to do more work and faster. So, yeah, my current feeling is that will be the fix. Like we won't go to 2-day work weeks. We'll just get more done in 5 days than we would have before, which may mean fewer people at those companies, but then potentially, hopefully, more companies.
But
So
but
hopefully
I
more
would I would
jobs.
challenge that just a little bit, just to say, not that I think you're wrong, but I think it's even more to the story.
Mhm.
I think that the applications will grow in complexity. In
Mm.
terms, or not even complexity, in sophistication. Because how many times have you said over your career, "Wouldn't it be cool if this app could do this thing?" Right? And so that expectation was limited because you're like, "Yeah, but that's not possible because we could never write the code that could do this non-deterministic thing." Right?
Mm.
Like it's too much scale. Like who can go through 10 billion rows and then, switch all these elements, right? No, nobody can ever do it right. So now that we can do that type of work, I think what's going to happen is our users will expect grander, more just sophisticated
More
experiences,
ambitious, yeah.
more ambitious, yes, more ambitious experiences, and we'll be able to deliver on a new level, right?
Yeah.
And I think companies will start to say, "Oh, our apps can be better." Right? Like our apps can be better. We can solve more problems. And like I say, every time I get a chance, I want the medical field to like get involved and get deep, get your research papers going. Like start like leveraging AI to help your research assistants. I want the medical field because I want in my lifetime, I want to see the end of cancer. I want to see the end of ALS. I want to see the end of neurological brain degenerative diseases like, like Alzheimer's. And I feel like the answers are buried in the data. And now we have tools. We have very, very sophisticated shovels that can do some special things now. And I want to see all that happen.
Yeah, and that's a really good point too. Is that I think we're all bemoaning the death of B2B SaaS when the fact is that the same technology that could potentially still do that is actually capable of much more, and it could have grander ambition. Which I think I've seen that point made by others as well. And I think that point that you touched on there about wanting to be involved in the conversation and wanting to be part of it actually brings me to another point as well. I'd like to talk about with folks such as yourself is that we do a lot of talking. I do a lot of talking. I'm on
Yeah.
camera a lot. There's then the potential that that all I do is talk, and I do very little engineering. And sometimes I feel like my skills are rotting behind because I'm too much talking, too much conference stage, and at some point, imposter syndrome, kicks back in. And does this guy even know what he's talking about? How do you do your best to find the balance of like it's really important to still be in the conversation, still be in the engineering, still understanding what you're talking about, versus that you still have to make the time to be the mouthpiece and be the mascot of that as well.
Good question. This is a hard problem, especially if you work in developer relations. This is a very hard problem because here's what I found: not being technical anymore it creates a small gap between where you could possibly add value and where you actually are adding value. And what's in the difference between this gap is like your practice in your engineering practice, right? So like so I feel like for me as a DevRel engineer, the best thoughts that I have come from experience with the code. So like I can have these theoretical ideas, but when I get practical, hands-on, I get even deeper insights. Things occur to me that did not occur before. So what I've been trying to do, and this is the thing about working at Google. So like since I've been on the Angular team over the last 5 years, because that Flutter role did not work out. When I got hired, they closed that role and then they're like, you gotta go someplace else. So I ended up on the Angular team, which has been best work of my life so far. Um, and what I try to do is I try to create opportunities for me to write code or to like use our framework and to use our product because I feel like I can't effectively, effective is not the right word. I can't, in my full capacity, advocate without that hardcore experience on the keyboard. Right? Like I just got to get involved. I guess I just got to try things. I just got to be like coding, and it's hard though. It's really hard. So I just try to create opportunities where I can, and that could be like writing prototypes, but that's even limited, to be honest with you, Simeon. Like, I'd be
And
honest.
yeah, and that's sort of the next point. Like, is that if the only coding you do is like quick start tutorials, or
Right.
just the very thinnest veneer of how to use the product without you no longer having that deep experience, or I guess what I try to do personally is have that experience, have conversations with people that have that deep experience. So I was
Mhm.
previously closer to the sales team, so talking with customers that used things more deeply and got to sort of vibe from their experience. So I get less of that now, but yeah, trying to at least hear from people that have deeper experience than yourself if you don't get that deep experience yourself.
That's a really good idea. That's a really great insight. Really great insight. Yeah. So, and these are like the evolving problems because I know DevRel has a bit of its own crisis going on, right? And I think that for DevRel people in general, because so 5 years ago, it was write blogs, create videos, create samples, go to conferences. Now organizations are looking at their DevRel teams like, okay, what is your value like add to the bottom line? Like, how are you adding value there? And is it worth it to have DevRel? Do we need to meet DevRel people? And I would argue you definitely need DevRel because there's a function that DevRel provide that really does create, value for the teams. Like, if you ever talk to your engineers on your teams, like I ain't gonna lie to you, most engineers are just so disconnected from reality when it comes to the reality of how people use their products or tools or frameworks. They're disconnected. Why? Because they spend time creating it. They don't spend time in the field talking to people. So it's okay. That's literally why we're here. But I also think that DevRel people being afraid to like sell has to go out the window. Like,
Oh, absolutely, and that's why I'm glad I sort of cut my teeth in sales, and
yeah.
now I'm sort of part of the marketing org. But yeah, I've got no problem selling because the job depends on selling.
That's right. That's why I keep trying to tell people, like, because sometimes I'll give feedback like, well, we don't want to push our products too hard on people. I'm like, not hard, but if I'm not trying to convert people into like, when I say conversion, like from the sales
Yeah,
point of view, if
yeah,
I'm not trying to convert, then what am I doing? Like, they're not paying me to like be charming, just for the sake of my own brand. Like I'm being paid to help move adoption forward, to help serve customers, to help serve the community. So some of that is still like just being direct, like, hey, this is a solution. If this is your problem, this is the solution. Right. And you got to be okay with
yes,
that. You just got to
yeah,
be okay with that. Like, don't be afraid that people are going to feel weird because from sales that like you don't even bat 1,000 in sales anyway. Like every person you talk
yeah,
to, you don't close anyway. So it's okay if some people don't want you to hear your pitch. Right. Like the ratio is much lower. So anyway,
yeah,
that's a
yeah.
whole different story.
All that,
But
all that, yeah, all that rejection is yeah. That's I was in solution engineering to be technically correct, so not in sales. But yeah, like I said, that rejection, I don't think I could do that. But being close to the sales org, I think's fine. And yeah, like I will freely admit, like with no problem, that Sanity's free to use, so anybody can use it. But I would love every Fortune 500 to go and sign up for it tomorrow as well. Like and get on the enterprise tier. There's no problem saying that. But I also do believe it is genuinely the best product for those use cases. And I mean, that's a whole other topic, is like trying to get past the cynicism, like any particular potential cynicism, and like we are building a solution to a problem. We're not just selling something for the sake of selling, but that's a whole other conversation. I don't want to take too much more of your time, but I've got one more thing I wanted to touch on. Like,
Yeah.
how long have you been working with the Angular team now?
Oh, wow. So it's been 5 years. I started with Angular when it was Angular JS back in like 2000, whatever, like 10 or 12 years ago.
Hmm.
With version 1, I was not here, right? I was at a healthcare company, and then I got cut my teeth with Angular as a web framework, with Angular JS as a web framework, and then, like I said, when I came to Google, I intended to go to Flutter, and I was very surprised. One of those pleasant surprises that I got to work on the Angular team, which was like really incredible. I'm still very like blown away that I get to work with so many incredible people. It's really surreal.
That's cool because that's the question I wanted to ask. I've been at Sanity for 4 years now.
Hmm.
You've been there for 5. How do you then keep that enthusiasm and that freshness with a product? You've been using the same product, using the same technology now for a number of years. I guess there was a big shift from Angular 1 to 2, right?
Yeah,
That's how. If I have that story correct, I don't have a lot of experience with Angular. I sort of
sure,
only get
sure.
the stories from third hand. But um, how do you then sort of wake up and get excited about talking about Angular yet again, like this morning?
Yeah, great question. So honestly, because you said something that it just touched my heart. You said you genuinely believe that Sanity is the best product to solve the problems in your like lane,
Hmm.
right? And I honestly feel that about Angular. I honestly feel like developers looking to build scalable web apps, they're just hard pressed to find a better solution. I just believe that in my heart of hearts. And then so that helps. But also we have been evolving Angular so much over the since I got here. So I got here at a watershed moment where there have been a few years of stagnation where people, weren't really talking about Angular anymore. And we just start to develop a reputation of like being slow, bloated, no new features. All these other frameworks are coming around and solving problems that we were literally positioned to solve, but we just had some things slowing us down, right? And then at that point, we made some pretty strong changes internally in our direction, and then it's been like hit after hit after hit. Like we've just been able to. I feel like we've caught up in a lot of ways and become very competitive across the web like framework landscape. I feel like we are incredibly competitive. And sure, you may feel like no, you don't like Angular's like philosophy on some things. Fine, that's okay. But you can't say that we're bad though. You see what I'm
Hmm.
saying? Like you could say that you just don't prefer, but you can't say that we're bad because we're not. Like the framework is actually quite solid, and some of the largest applications in the SaaS space are built with Angular. You see, so if you think about Google Cloud being built with Angular, think about how many users use Gemini. That UI is built with Angular. So like we're powering very popular apps on the web, which is just like, and that makes me excited because then our engineering team is delivering on new things more and more all the time. Simeon, and this may sound a little salesy, but it's because I believe it though. I, j-
All
I
right.
just I just honestly believe like if we continue on this path, it's just hard not to be like top of mind and the best choice for developers looking to build scalable web apps.
This is a safe space to be salesy.
Yeah.
I'll just say it. But I just want to say too, like even though I'm an outsider on Angular, I haven't got a lot of experience with it. I do. That does resonate though. I feel like there is positive sentiment coming out of Angular over the last few years, where it had
Mhm.
sort of that reputation before. So definitely, I've felt that from the outside, even though I'm not yet a user of
Mhm.
Angular. Definitely, I think that's cutting through, and so it sounds like then naturally that excitement to wake up and keep talking about Angular would be there because there's some momentum both from engineering and from the community receiving those updates and those changes. So that's really cool. That's all I really had. Was there anything else you wanted to touch on, or sort of come to mind that perhaps we missed? I'm not sure if we stayed too much on content creation as much as I wanted to, but we went all over the place. Is there anything
Sure.
else triggered, or we can wrap that up there?
Yeah, we could just say a few things about content creation because I feel like it'd be a disservice to your community who are like, I want to hear about content. If we don't say a few things, so let's say this. I'll give people 3 or 4 ideas about, like how to make your best content. And hopefully that'll like satiate the desires of folks.
You
Uh,
can tick the box that we talked about
right.
content.
So first and foremost, make stuff. That's number one. You don't need a fancy camera. You don't need fancy lights. Yes, I have a fancy camera. Yes, I have fancy lights, but I did not start here. If
Mhm.
you look back, there are videos of me before this setup, before all of this stuff, on the internet, and I just got better over time. But you know how I got better? I got better by doing it. It's the only
Get
way to
reps
get
in.
better with content.
That's it. I'm constantly in this push pull of should I stop and workshop this more and make it even better? I had it just this morning. Had a moment of clarity this morning. I'm going to create a video on that right now. I didn't set up all my fancy lights. I just made this video, and then I sort of sat on it for the rest of the day. I'm like, should I do version 2? I could make this better. I'm like, no, I'm posting this right now. I posted it literally 2 minutes before we started this conversation. Just get
Fantastic.
reps in.
Exactly. Get those reps in. I think, and then somebody's gonna say, "But I have got my reps in. I'm ready for the next thing." So, what would be the next thing that I would recommend if you want to like update your content creation journey? And you're like, "What's the best thing I can do?" People will tolerate bad video. They will not tolerate bad audio. That's that's a big thing. If they can't hear you, they don't care. Like I can, yeah. So at least people who are not like deaf or hard of hearing, like those folks, you got to have captions and like accessible content. Because that'd be like my third point is make sure you make accessible content. So when I make a video, I always have my subtitles on, my captions on, and I really try to be thoughtful about that to make my content accessible. Because why would you cut out part of the potential audience because you're just not thinking about it, right? So that's something to think about too. Is just who is your audience and making sure you can reach everybody, even like users who are not. I guess what I want to say is like people forget disabled users for some reason, which is so wild to me because it's like there's so many people who are differently able, or disabled, and then we like make content that doesn't serve them. So like one time I made a course and I wrote the course so that you could listen to it or watch it. And the way I did it was when I was talking about, you know, like adding something to the DOM, I would say on the section with the ID, header, the first child, add a P element, add the attribute class, add for the value, add a string, right? So these descriptive instructions were able to let somebody who couldn't watch me
Mhm.
follow along still. They could still follow along the whole time. And I was like, man, because I want to make this clear. And guess what? When you make accessible content, and this is okay, I won't go too far on the tangent here or a rant. I'll say this, but when you make accessible content, I always find that it makes it better for everybody, even people
Yes.
who don't need accessible content. It's always better. Just like when you have like in your city in civics, you have like curbs and you have the ramp. I didn't
Mhm.
understand the slope for the curb until I had a stroller or a buggy, or like you call it carriage, right? Until
Yep.
I had one, I never understood the necessity of it. And then I would get so mad every time I go to a street corner and there wasn't this ramp because I'm like, how am I supposed to get this buggy up this ramp? And then I thought even bigger than myself. I'm like, oh, this is the plight of our friends who have accessive devices to like motor devices. This is their plight for wheelchair users. This is the plight for like motorized scooter users, right? So making things accessible just benefits everybody. Okay, that's enough of me just like ranting about content creation.
Strong agree. With the learning courses that I create on Sanity, I do the same. I'll write them out in full first. I know some people will create videos and then just post a transcript of the video. I want to write the whole thing out to get my
Mhm,
thoughts out.
mhm.
But that's also because some people prefer to read, some people prefer to video. I think it's like 50-50 every time I've polled the audience, and it just it serves all audiences, whether it's for accessibility's sake or not. And when it comes to accessibility like that, I'm always reminded. I think it was Microsoft put out a graphic a while ago that we're not all disabled, but we are at times.
Wow.
I've got both arms, but like sometimes I might be holding something, and then I've only got one arm. So like, does it work for if I'm holding a baby or something? Can I use it with
Wow.
one arm? And so that thought that we aren't all always able all the time. There's a really great infographic about that. That it's good to keep in mind. So
Incredible. Incredible.
thanks for saving the podcast at the last minute and actually bringing it back to content creation. I'm going to get better. This is episode 11, maybe. This is very early for me too, so I'm getting reps in at this point. Let's find out what this thing is. But I'm so grateful for your time and really enjoyed this conversation.
Likewise. Thank you for having me. And I'll tell you this. You start right now. So either this episode 11, episode 20, you'll look back at 11 like, what was I doing? right? Because you'll be so much better just from getting the reps in. So this is amazing.
Absolutely.
I'm having a great time. I didn't even know this was only episode 11, but you're fantastic. So I can even imagine where you'll go over time as you continue. So thank you for having me. It's a pleasure and an honor, man. I appreciate you.
I very much appreciate that, and I will do my best to accept that praise as we discussed earlier. So thanks.